answer.
No, we will come into this, the structure that was put in place.
Okay.
Like, for instance, a committee
Yes,
to oversee the response.
Okay.
Then what is the composition of the structure?
Yes. Okay.
And the hierarchy of the setup. And what were their, what do we call it? Responsibilities.
Okay.
The details of like the amount,
Okay.
where the fundings came from. It will come. Don't worry, we'll get to the meat. Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to be from
Yeah,
the
but as of
beginning
now,
to get to the structure. Now I'll go to the structures. How this give the credit to Dr. Samadi of health. That is the health committee, just to come to the committee. We went around to look for places for quarantine people, me and my team. And then when I called him to tell him the places that were available, that is outside the arrangements they did to quarantine people at Bana Hotel and others. We went for the stadium and other places. So when I called him, he said, I'll get there.
Yeah, what we are expecting,
Yes.
is probably for you to tell us that there was a committee.
Okay.
Committee X was set up.
Okay.
And this is the composition of the committee.
Right, I was going to how the committee was. Okay, the COVID committee.
The issue of the centers will come later.
Okay. The COVID committee, when we finally settled to decide, okay, I'll go there. When we go to setting the committees, we set up the food procurement committee. And the members of the food procurement committee, first, the idea was conceived at the Ministry of Finance to set up the food procurement committee.
There was a food procurement committee.
Yes. So the food procurement committee, we took it to trade because we thought that's the right location. And the Minister of Finance and Trade discussed and agreed that the permanent secretary trade and his team, they will be the secretariat. And the composition is permanent secretary trade as chairperson, and the members are permanent secretary finance, permanent secretary agriculture, the EPPA director general, the accountant general, I think also NDMA, chief executive or executive director, and the audit, internal audit director general.
Internal audit.
No. He wasn't. No. Oh, he was on the health committee. Yes. The accountant general was on the health committee, not the food procurement committee. So these are the members of the food procurement committee.
Procurement committee.
Yes, and the strategic policy unit at the president's office.
This is a one. The procurement was good for food and medical items.
Yeah, this is food.
This is food.
Food procurement committee.
Because you mentioned the director of medical services.
No. He is not part of it. He is not part of it.
I have a question.
Yes, I'm coming to you, Honorable. We have to be patient.
Yeah,
Let's just exercise patience. We just want to get him, and then if they will need clarification, and then I'll have to give them the floor to ask if probably there's some deviation for them to question on that, and then before we proceed.
Yes.
So just a second. Honorable Njai.
Yes, I will appreciate, like Madam Chair said,
Yes.
but like what I'm asking is, was there a committee and a record of that committee? Because you mentioned people that were not part of the committee, and you are saying that they are part of it. So can we have evidence of the members of that committee so that we will know? Because every committee obviously must have a chair and must have a structure. So can we have the prescription, the TOR, and the members of the committee so we can confirm? Because you mentioned 2 people now who have said that they were not members of the committee.
Yes. The reason why that is happening because they were my staff at the Ministry of Finance. Sometimes I go with them to this meeting. But the committee members that I mentioned are these ones. Yes, the committee members, I will say again to clarify, PS Trade is the chair, and the members of the committees are Permanent Secretary Finance, Permanent Secretary Agriculture by Java, Director General of GPPA, Strategic and Policy Division at the Office of the President, Director General, Alaji Nyangado, who is now Ambassador to Russia, and NDMA, Mr. Dahama, Executive Director of NDMA, is also a member of the Food Procurement Committee. And we were to sit and procure food items for distribution to vulnerable members of our community. And the food items were rice, sugar, and oil. And then the health committee also was formed.
Members of the health committee?
Yes.
Can you tell us?
Yes, members of the health committee is the Permanent Secretary Health, Chairman, myself, Permanent Secretary Finance, Director General of EPPA, the Accountant General, Internal Audit Director General, I mentioned.
They can always supplement.
Yes.
They can always, if you
Yes.
commit somebody, they can always come in and.
Yeah, because
Right.
this is more than
Yes,
1
you
year
can
ago.
assist in the composition
those are-
of the various committees.
That's correct. What
Yeah.
he said, what he said is correct.
Yes,
So that is the health committee, the
Yeah.
health procurement committee.
yes, and that is to approve the procurement of health needs to fight the COVID-19.
So you mean their responsibilities were to ascertain the procurement of medical items?
Yes.
That's what you just said.
Yes, when the way it goes, the health ministry would present their request for payment for procurement of certain items. And this committee now looks at the request to approve or disapprove, including payment of allowances to frontline workers at the Ministry of Health.
Very good.
Yeah.
There's one more committee.
Yes.
The committee that was supposed to be responsible for the distribution of this.
Transport logistics, that one is NDA.
There was no committee.
There was no committee responsible for distribution.
No. That was entirely NDMA
It
responsible.
was entirely
NDMA, National.
NDMA.
Yes. Huh?
I guess they are around.
Governor?
Yes.
Yes, there was a committee.
Okay, who are the
There
members?
was a committee. I think we should start from
Yes,
there.
can we get the committee
Okay.
for the
Yes.
distribution?
Okay.
Yes.
Where we should start
There's a
from.
microphone there somewhere, no?
Yeah.
Can you help also all this loud so that everybody can hear you? I'm sorry. Can you help others in the eye? Can you get it?
Hello? Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I think we can just start from where the whole issue started. When COVID-19 actually entered this country, there was a cabinet subcommittee responsible for the overall coordination of this COVID-19. This cabinet subcommittee looked at it from a humanitarian dimension as well as a clinical dimension. MDMA and the stakeholders, which included Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Local Government, Agriculture, GPPA, NDMA, OP, DSPD, Internal Audit, Ministry of Health, Office of the Vice President, we are actually looking at from a humanitarian dimension. because there was a clinical dimension to it and there was a humanitarian dimension. So this procurement committee was drawn from that overall committee because there was several presentations to the committee to look at what kind of scenario we are going to adopt in response to COVID-19. The Ministry of Finance Planning Unit played a key role in that. Director TSPD, Director of Strategic Planning and Delivery at the Office of the President also played a key role to that. We came up with several presentations to the Cabinet Subcommittee at the Office of the Vice President to look at what kind of scenario that we're going to adopt. Finally, I think, I don't have the text with me, but scenario 3 was adopted, which we asked GBOS to come up with the number of households that are going to benefit from this emergency relief fund. First we said civil servants were not going to benefit. The second one, we said greater Banjul area where poverty is not concentrated, they were not going to benefit. But from West Coast up to Basay, those people are going to benefit. That's how the whole thing, we walk around that at the household number of 256,000. This was where the procurement, we started coming up with a procurement committee to respond to what was generated from
Can you tell us the members of that procurement committee?
The procurement committee were Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Trade, National Disaster Management Agency, National Disaster Management Agency. These were actually the internal DPPA. These were the key members that I can fully remember, who actually coordinated the procurement. Agriculture, yes. And also DSPD,
Yes.
Director of Strategic Planning.
You must have held meetings.
Yes.
Do you have minutes?
Of course, we had minutes, but Trade was the secretary. Trade served as a secretariat. So they are here. They should be in a better position to tell you whether they kept minutes or not.
They have.
Okay, so let them just come up with it.
You should have minutes.
Yeah.
Honorable members,
Yes.
you can, I think, give them this microphone. That's my voice. You can use this.
Okay.
Doctor, can you all, honorable, let's hear doctor.
Good afternoon once again. Thank you for giving us. So just as he said, we now give the health aspect of also the hierarchy of committee. So like he said, you have the cabinet, the full cabinet, then you have a subcommittee. So there are certain issues that they have to even take to the full cabinet when you have to do a cabinet paper, especially to introduce the vaccine. Then you have a subcommittee of the cabinet. Then you have a fiduciary or procurement and all that. It's this committee that has been mentioned by finance. But for the needs, health, and the type of response, it's still that line. But we have what we call the National Health Emergency Committee, which is chaired by the Minister of Health and co-chaired by the WHO Controller, and includes many other stakeholders. So under that committee, you have the National Strategic Committee, which is chaired by the Permanent Secretary and co-chaired by the WHO Controller. So under that one, you have the Coordinating Committee, which is chaired by the Director of Health Services and Incident Committee. Under that, you have different committees. You have the Surveillance and Laboratory Committee. You have the Case Management, which deals with the cases. You have the Risk Communication, you have the Psychosocial, and then you have the Logistics and Safety Committee. So this is how the response was handled. Judiciary by this committee, response regarding needs, what needs to be done, and direct the response was through this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. You will all assist if we just slow down because we need to take everything down so that we'll have it in order. From the ethics committee, indicators, subcommittees, and right down. That will give us a clear understanding of the structure. Yes, Honorable. Yes. Then Honorable Mbong wanted to ask this.
Yes, what I'm just going to confirm is they have on top, if I understand it right, they have a cabinet subcommittee on top. And
That's
responsible
Apex.
committee. Yeah, that's Apex committee. From there, other committees, subcommittees were created. One specifically for health. That's why you have the National Health Emergency Committee. Is that right? Then you have another committee that was also responsible for food procurement and whatever. Is that correct? Then you also have a committee that was responsible for the transportation, but I think now you're saying that was responsible of the NDMA.
Yeah, transportation.
Transport. So anything dealing with transport or those items is the responsibility of the NDMA. Okay, that's what I just wanted to
I
confirm.
wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Yes, Honorable Ndiaye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Honorable Ngo has made that clarification because what they've left out was the cabinet committee, which he has also confirmed. But to be honest, I think we all followed what happened, and we all saw that the vice president was a focal point at one point. I mean, probably representing the cabinet. I think it would also be fair for her to also be in this committee meeting to answer certain questions, because obviously information flows from the top, and she might be the one giving out the information. So we cannot discuss this without also having her, so that she can also explain, because I don't see any cabinet member here, and I think it's only fair, being the Apex committee, to also represent the cabinet here and explain to us exactly how things were done. We only see other committees which were in the Apex, and it's fair for the Apex committee to also come, because that is where the main decisions are taken to trickle down to other committees.
Thank you very much, but I don't think that is for the senior, for the officials to take a decision on. I think that should have been a decision taken by FPAC. But since it's an issue that has arisen, I don't think that should stop us from our present proceedings. We can continue and then take a decision. We have tomorrow, we are reconvening tomorrow, and we can consult and bring in whoever we think is necessary and ought to be brought in.
Yeah.
So yes, Honorable Majority Leader and then Rami.
Maybe what will be more helpful is for us to have the full list of the cabinet subcommittee, so that from there on we can make a decision as to who to conduct in that committee.
Let's get Rami.
Honourable Speaker, Honourable Chair, I think we are deviating. We are here discussing about the report. This report is not dealing with policy. It's dealing with procurement and distribution. And the responsible officers are here. They are in the perfect position to answer all our questions. I don't think those, the vice president or any other person that has to deal with policy should appear here, because there's nothing here that deals with policy. It's all procurement and distribution. I think, yes, it will suffice to meet these people. I think
that is why I said, let us continue with our present proceedings. Yes. And the other issues is for us to take a decision.
Yeah. Okay, I would also want a clarification, because the former PS Finance did mention that there seemed to be no committee on distribution. It was solely NDMA, but the NDMA executive has clarified that there was a committee. And my question would be, can they just clarify, because we know from the other committees that we knew their chairs. I can just assume that this one was chaired by NDMA, but they need to clarify who. He has endeavored to state the members of that committee. I think he did say Ministry of Finance, Trade, NDMA, GBBA, Agriculture, and Director of Society at OP. Who was the chair of that committee? I think so that when we are directing our questions in relation to distribution, it will be directed to that, yes, please.
Can we help with the chair?
Yeah, the committee I mentioned okay, sorry.
Committee
I just mentioned are the same committee responsible, and they are the ones coordinating the distribution. From the procurement level up to delivery level at Makati Square, they were the ones responsible. At the field level, NDMA, at the operational level, at the field level, NDMA was responsible.
We just ask me who chairs that committee. If you are meeting, who is the chair?
Of course, the same committee, Minister of Finance and Trade, the ones who, so we are there with them.
Let me clarify.
Sorry.
Distribution start from procurement.
Sorry.
Can I just add this so that you answer all of them together? But I want to ask some questions to what was raising. For me, I'm not quite clear about the committee that we are talking about. First, can you provide us with a list of all the committees and their roles? Because otherwise we will not be able to make any sense of what we are saying. Because there are many committees, and I'm not clear where maybe there are cross-cutting issues. Maybe there are people who are members of different committees at the same time. So that should be clear, so that we know what exactly we are talking about. We want to have a list of all the committees and the roles that these committees were performing. Because if we know that, then we'll be clear about what we are going to talk.
Yes, Honorable, the committees that we mentioned, even if we are to write, we are going to submit the same committee and the same names. And these committees, like I said, the procurement committee, the minutes are there. And those who attend those meetings, the minutes are there. And I remember there was one of the minutes, for me, I would say, signing on some of those meetings that I did not attend when I saw my name there. So that's my principle. I said I did not attend this meeting, so mark me absent. So there were minutes of committee meetings. And the committees that exist, even if we are to write, are the Health Procurement Committee and the Food Procurement Committee. Now, what my colleague is saying and friend is that the Procurement Committee, the members that are mentioned, we've not read there yet. We just asked for the committees. That's what we mentioned. Now, the committee that decided on the procurement of food from the state of advertisement up to awarding contracts, those are the ones that I mentioned. After we awarded the contracts, and now the contract, the businesses that were given the contract, when they procure the food and bring it to McCarthy Square, which was the center to deliver this food, at that stage, the job of the NDMA started from there. They are the ones who receive the food items, confirm that this contractor has brought the food, and sign the delivery note and send it back to the office of the Accountant General for payment. So they are responsible for that. That's why that one is not like a committee. They receive the goods, sugar, rice, and oil. And from that stage, they went with it to distribute into the country. That one, there is no committee like the chair is NDMA or the chair is finance and these are the members. That's why I did not mention it. The transportation part of it also, NDMA also talked to the drivers and the transportation of goods and everything was sent down. What we received at the Ministry of Finance at the end of the operation is that so much was spent because the contracts that we awarded and how much it was, we know, and how much the budget was, the estimated amount. We know, the figures are there, the documents are there. At the end of the whole operation, when everybody submitted their vouchers, then it came to finance to now pay for these goods. When they came, we asked them to come with the delivery notes, the contract award letter, the business registration of that business, AG and what else, or whatever. At least the GPPA registration. And before we pay, when the whole amount was presented, then we asked for authority to pay this amount from the cabinet subcommittee chair. They gave the instruction for us to pay, and with that, we supplied the money, the vote, and then the accountant general paid the contractors. That's how it all happened. With regards to the health committee, the committee that I mentioned, even if we submit the records, are those, is the health committee, procurement committee, the members are those, and then the minutes are there, and then the committee, the money allocated for the procurement of health items. We asked, the committee asked the accountant general to create a different account, but on the IFMIS, and appoint a project accountant there, because we don't want those monies to be mixed with the health budget allocation to the health. And that accountant now pays from, based on the approval of the committee for those purchases to be made. And the committee, that's where we stop also. When we approve for payment, health now moves with the procurement. That side of it never goes back to the committee. That's how we do it. I hope that helps.
Just a point of clarification. In terms of receiving food at Makat Square, NDMA team was doing that the Minister of
Before we
Trade.
take the floor,
Okay.
Yes, Minister of Trade.
you'll be given the floor.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Okay.
Honorable Judge. If you have 2 or 3 questions, then you can
Yeah,
respond.
thank you very much, Honorable Chair. My concern, I think he's now getting to answer our question. Like I mentioned earlier and emphasized by Honorable Jaffa, we need members of each committee and their roles, because according to the report, many procurements of food and medical items, and I'm reading from the report, did not comply with relevant laws and regulations. Issues of non-compliance were regular, and it took place at all stages of the procurement. That is the reason why. Because this investigation is to hold people responsible. People that were meant to do certain things and did not comply with the laws or the distribution. And that is why we need to know specifically who and who was responsible for what and at what time. That is the reason we need documents. We need names of people. We need their responsibilities at what time and where their responsibilities ceased and transferred to another committee. It's very, very important, because it says at all stages there were non-compliant, and that is why we are here. We need to know so that people who are responsible will be held responsible, because these are funds that were misappropriated. Whether it was done properly at procurement, whether it was done at disposal, or whether it was done at supply. That is what we are trying to ascertain, so that those responsible would be held responsible. Because this, like you said, health, lives and livelihoods, it could have caused death of people. So this is the reason we are here, and we would appreciate it if we see the documents and the names of the people, their responsibilities at what point. Thank you.
I agree totally to what you are saying. That's why my
Some of the questions may overlap, so that's why it will help if we allow 2 or 3.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I'm just trying to confirm, because it seems to me there's another committee called the Finance Committee. It seems to me. Finance Committee. Finance.
It's procurement and finance.
It's procurement and finance. So that particular committee, procurement and finance, they are the ones that are responsible for the approval of all procurement issues. Is that correct? For health or food or whatever?
All procurement is done to health.
Yes.
And all expenses that is coming from the COVID account.
Yes.
That's the committee that is
That's
responsible.
correct. So they have the approval before it's executed.
Yeah, before the ministry.
So I can call it procurement and finance committee. Okay.
Honorable Judge, sorry, Mr. Kalaba, you wanted to clarify one of the issues?
No, what I just wanted to clarify, in terms of receiving food at Makat Square, NDMA was doing that with Minister of Trade.
Ministry of Trade.
Yes, Minister of Trade.
Yes, go ahead. The microphone.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you for all of you. I just want to make two clarifications. I think what Dava is saying is true. The role of trade at that point is just to confirm that people who have been given the award, the supply, they are supplying what is on their letter. Because all the letters were, all the award letters were signed by Permanent Secretary, Minister of Trade at the time, in the presence of all the committee members. And the role there was to confirm that the supplier A, who is delivering its supply to Market Square, this is what he's supposed to deliver, EOC is supposed to deliver, and this is exactly what EOC delivered. It's just to confirm that. And I think what Honorable Chuma wants to say, it might be difficult, because this was a very difficult moment. You know, there was no specific terms of reference written for this committee to say that this is what exactly the committee is going to do in writing. This committee was a call, you know, to bring all the stakeholders, relevant stakeholders, to look at what's supposed to be done, you know, to be able to serve the vulnerable Gambians the food that they need. That was the main objective. And we got together, we looked at various scenarios as he said, and looked at so that we were able to determine the number that we're supposed to serve. We looked at various statistics from various surveys that was done by people. And at the end of the day, a cutoff number was determined. And the role of the MDMA was not defined by them, was defined by the committee. The committee agreed that since they have the experience in these kinds of distribution, they should be the one responsible for distribution, and to be supported by World Food Program, because they have that experience. And the transportation, in terms of transportation, the committee advised that they invite various vehicle owners, particularly the transport union, so that the vehicle requirements for the distribution we can be able to meet.
Yes, Honorable Jata, before I give you the floor, the tasks assigned was properly done. Is that right? Now, my question is, did you have any or what operational procedures did you put in place to ensure that the task would be done or was done? If any.
Procurement officer was on site.
Procurement
officer. And some of the officials that were that we put together at the level of the ministry to be at Market Square to ensure that the letters that we distributed, the suppliers, that was given to the suppliers, they deliver according to that.
And how often was the procedure reviewed?
No, the procedure,
so you may start, okay, assuming, as you said, that everything was abrupt.
Yes.
If I were here, it was so abrupt, the procedure was put in place. Then halfway through, you discover that, well, this procedure is not working, it's not effective. Can we see how we can amend it or review it?
Yeah, there were reviews. Because if you look at there were suppliers who were awarded to supply, they could not. Then the committee had to meet and allocate it to other members, the other suppliers who can supply. Those things happen.
Yes. Honorable Yaya was asking if any
problem in my mind because essentially why committee is established, the establishment of the committee is to put order into what is to be done and to determine what is to be done. And to determine what is to be done, it requires what he is asking. That means there is somebody who is responsible for this because I cannot be responsible for everything. I am responsible for this, somebody is responsible for all this responsibility. That's what he's asking. But you are saying that because of this situation, it is difficult to provide such an answer. And I'm saying that I wouldn't agree with that because essentially, if you want to feel committees, do precisely that.
Yes.
To avoid doing things as a starter. That's why you had your committee.
Yes. Can I come now?
Yes,
The reason why I said roles to individuals in the committee, that was what I was trying to say. It was not that individual members of the committee have a specific role. It wasn't like that. It was a collective responsibility. You know, it was NTMA was identified specifically for distribution because of their experience. You know, because this is something that they have been doing. That was exactly what happened. But it doesn't mean that this is what credit is going to do, this is what central bank finance is going to do, this is what EBPA is going to do specifically to individual members. No, it wasn't like that.
You see, Mr. Ganta, if I take by analogy, the committees of the National Assembly, we have so 19, you see, but just ask the director of committees or the clerk or any of the deputy clerks. Straight away they'll be able to tell you. Ask for a list, they'll provide the list, including the chairperson. They can tell you, at one go, the chairperson of committee, FPAC, is Mariam Denti. Education is Honorable Jata. The chairperson of PEC is Honorable Ali Fasala. Agriculture is Honorable Mamadou Sise, and so on, and so on, and so on. I am sure records have been kept. It shouldn't be difficult. No, I'm coming, Governor. It shouldn't be difficult to provide this committee with a list of the various committees and the composition, of course, including the chairpersons.
No, that is not difficult. That is there.
Okay.
That is there. What I'm saying is that she said that individual members in the committee.
No, again, when we are the National as a committee, yes, when we prepare our reports, we're not going to say Honorable Tumangai, we're not going to say Honorable Syria Jata. The committee, yes, it's a decision of the committee, yes, just like at cabinet level, yes, it's collective responsibility. Yes. We all know how these things work. Yes, yes. But at the end of the day, of course, we will know that the committee under the chairperson of A, B, and C failed to do A, B, and C, did not comply with the laws, did not do A, did not do C, or they did it halfway or whatever. Yes, I think, yes, Honorable Majority.
Honorable Speaker, I think what the Honorable Member for Banjul South is asking is very pertinent. Because we set up an emergency committee to look at the issues, the programs and activities of the COVID response team. And when they reported to the National Assembly, they told us the functions of the committee and the Ministry of Health. So if the Ministry of Health can have those functions for the committee members, why not the other committee members? And I think maybe Honorable Bo can help us in this. We can vividly remember that they gave us the functions and responsibilities of the committee that they visited and the work that they have done.
Yes, Governor.
Madam Speaker and Chairperson of the FPAC committee, there should be no confusion in this. I go back to the same explanation. Like Honorable Jada said, he should not have any confusion. This is very clear, as you have just said. And I said it. There are committees, and I mentioned the committees. The food procurement committee is there. The chairman I mentioned is the permanent secretary, Ministry of Trade, and I gave you all the members of the committee, and I said the minutes are there. You want the records, we will bring those records. This is simple. I told you there is another committee, that is the health procurement committee. I told you the chair and the members and the minister are there. We will submit them to you. And you asked, and what Mr. Dafa is saying, there should be no confusion. I know what Honorable Tumajai asked. We will come to that answer. We did not break any rules, and we followed rules. The reason why this, I agree totally with the auditors. Even the need assessment, they said no need assessment was done. It depends on who you talk to when you are doing your audit. We are technicians, we are responsible people. The reason why these committees were set, this has never happened in this country, as far as I can tell, to take care of public funds. Because we at finance said that this is a lot of money that we are going to spend on the Gambian people, and we are in very difficult times. The people who are vulnerable, the poor people who are going to suffer, we want to make sure this reaches them. Finance could have done the procurement, but we said no, let's form a committee so that we have all the decision makers on that committee. This was a national emergency. In fact, we started even before, I remember the cabinet, National Assembly members and Gambians, radio programs all over. I was the permanent secretary. I don't sleep during those days. They were saying, if you want people to stay indoors, you have to give us food. But before even they think about asking that question, we at the Ministry of Finance were working. The director of planning at the Ministry of Finance, we instructed him, even before anybody talked about providing food to Gambians or whatever. We told him, go and sit with GBOS, because they have the statistics. We have to know the vulnerable people and the poor we need to care for. We said sit with statistics. Nana, because we talked about giving people money. The money we have in the pocket, that's what the president, His Excellency, the president changed into buying sugar. But the recommendation that went to him is to give $1,000 into every household. So we had money there. I was new in government. I was all the time at the central bank. But I wanted to make sure that the right people sit on the right committees so that decisions can be correct and efficiently executed. So we said GBOS, Nana, health, agriculture. That also the list is there. Even before coming to the meeting, I was in a meeting with him this morning. And I said, where is that director, Alagi Fadera? And he said he traveled. I said, send him a text. I need those records. We will give you all those records. It depends on who the auditors talk to. In the middle of, even when we were procuring and distributing, the Auditor General came to my office and one Mr. Now and said, we want to audit this food procurement. I said, but the process is on. He said, but there's so many talks. I said, no problem. I explained everything to them. But let me come back to what I want to say. So since we want to make sure public funds are secure, we said it's an emergency. People need, a state of emergency was declared. People need to stay indoors. But before they can stay indoors, some people go to the store to sell. By 1 o'clock, they go and buy food and go and cook for their families. If you tell those people stay in the house, how are they going to eat? So we tell our people, form this committee so that all the decision makers are at one table. When we take the decision, if you write to give EPA to approve a procurement, approval for a procurement of food items, and the advertisement, and whether it's going to be restricted, single source, or open tender, who is going to approve it? The Director General. So we said, bring the Director General to the table. Bring the Permanent Secretary Agriculture. It's about food. Bring the Permanent Secretary Trade. They deal with the business sector. It could have been at finance, but we want to locate it at the right place. That's why we took it to trade, because they know the business people, they deal with them, and they would know where each food item is. So this is not just haphazardly setting up a ad hoc committee. No, we are civil servants, and we need to provide the best service to the Gambian people. That's how this committee came about. When we formed the committee, please let me just clarify. The health committee is there, the food committee is there. From the food committee, the foods were delivered at Makati Square. Who was responsible? NDMA. And he said we trade. That is very clear. They are responsible for receiving the food. All questions relating to receiving food goes to them. Distribution of food, we have told you who distributed. It's very clear. So in this case, where responsibilities lie, we are not confused. These things were, decisions were properly thought and made, and for good reasons. When we go to that, get to those levels, we will explain. And you can have the right information and make your decision. But we know that proper things were done.
Can I just allow, let me just allow GPP That is why I said then.
Yeah. I just want to add on to what the chairman of the committee said. Even for the procurement, we made sure that even though there should have been, let's say, a month's period to tender, we knew that it was not possible. It was, everybody was in a haste. But we attempted to do good practice. What did we do? We put up a tender in the radio, in the newspapers, and we gave bidders, it was short, but there was no way that it could have been lengthened. The law said a month at least, but due to the emergency, you can reduce that. We reduced it to about 3 days, 4 days. And a good principle of public procurement says that you try to spread the participation as much as possible, especially for female entrepreneurs. We achieved that. This public procurement was the best processed procurement. Most, if you look at the beneficiaries, the traders who participated, most of them were women, and we tried to spread as much as possible. Instead of, and we could have even given it to one importer. I remember in a meeting when I said that as PPADE, we can improve the process in such a way that a single importer would not benefit from this. So that we ended up, I believe, about 15 or so SMEs who participated. So we said,
yes,
in fact, if I may add, like you said, the directive.
Governor, please, otherwise we will never finish this section. So I just want to add 1, 2, and then we move over to the substance of it. So we start off with that.
Thank you. I think what, as a committee, what we were looking at, like to give us a comprehensive structure by showing all the committee members and what their terms of reference were. Like when we consulted with the Minister of Finance, because I was the chair of the COVID committee in the parliament here, they came and gave us a rundown of every single committee they had and what were the responsibilities of every committee. And along the way, you will see that some of their roles actually, you may see that they may overlap in some cases. And but you can also see that along the way also they've changed some of the additions because this was a pandemic, and issues were coming that we didn't actually know. So what we expected is when you come, you're going to tell us, okay, at the level, at the country level, we have a subcommittee from the Office of the President, consisting of A, B, C, and D members. Then from there, you said we have created committee A, B, C, and D, and these are the members of this committee. This is chair, and this is the vice chair. This is exactly what the Minister of Health actually has done. When I went through their presentation, it was very clear, and they can tell, I can sit here and tell you each committee what they were supposed to do, and who are they, and what was the thing that were assigned to them. So that's really what we expected to hear. So the Minister of Health actually, they gave us documents. Yeah, they gave us documents. So if you have a document that's going to clearly spell those things out, that's going to make our work very easy. You give us a document, you say, okay, this is the cabinet subcommittee, and these are the other subcommittees that we have, and this is the chairperson, and these are the members. If you have that, it's simple. Like for the Minister of Health, we have, like as the chairperson of the committee, I already have, and it was very clear. And I can tell you each of the committees what they're actually supposed to do. So we were looking at something like that from your committee, or from the various committees.
Honorable, that's what I said. I said there are procurement.
Yeah, do you have the document? Do you have a document that's going to be there?
Well, that's what I told you. I said the minutes are there. the members
Okay,
of the
you put
committee
it,
are
can
there.
you just provide it?
Yes, we were not asking.
Otherwise, we'll be engaging in this dialogue. You have said it verbally.
But we were
So
not
what we
asking.
need is, can we please have one meeting? What we need, if I get Honorable Bowright, just let us have it as they had during the oversight visits when we went round on a tour. You got it right, huh? So now let us get that. I mean, it shouldn't be difficult for you to provide us with that. No,
Madam
we're
Chair.
not spending any more time on the structures of the committees. Let us get what we need or what we want, and then we will proceed to the next issue. Honorable, final on the governance. No, Honorable Mr. NDMA. Next, we are coming tomorrow.
Yeah, because we just want to
Don't worry, we are coming in
need
tomorrow,
assessment.
and we will bring out some news here. If you don't have anything on this, then so. I want us to close the governance committee issues, and then we'll go over to the other areas that we want to raise. Thank you very much. Sorry. The structure. The FPAC would also want to deal with the detailed findings of the audit report itself. And one of the areas is on procurement. And we have observed, going through the records, that is the report, sorry, that specific amounts were contracted out without GPPA approval. So, honorable members, can we have the detailed question? Thank you. Take your first bullet point. Rami, you want to take drop? Can bring the mic up. No? Rami. Honorable Rami.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Honorable Chair. I will follow the report so that it will follow the order. Can we just turn to page 32?
I am not sure whether we have our same. Oh, we have the same.
Yeah.
Let's move that. We've just okay. Page 32. Yes.
I think both the former PS and the executive secretary of the NDMA have touched on this. The auditors did claim that there was no needs assessment report. I think you have mentioned that they did not ask the right people. He's here. So can you just clarify as to what the auditors are saying and why so? Do you have a needs assessment?
Of course, there was a need assessment.
No, please, the chair, there's a chair. Let us respect the procedures, let us respect the procedures. And I'm sure the reason why Honorable Drame specifically referred to page 32 is because if you look from the interview of the PS on radio and television Good Morning Show of 27th of April, he mentioned that a needs assessment was conducted for the procurement of the food items.
Yes.
But according to the auditors, they are saying despite a number of requests, such an assessment was not provided for our review. And that, I'm sure that is the reason why. So,
Chair and honorable members, nobody asked me. I volunteered. I went on radio. When I came in as permanent secretary, I came in and I wanted to reform the Ministry of Finance. I was the accounting officer. And I want to make sure that we are dealing with public funds. I discussed this with my honorable minister and he agrees with me. We are dealing with public funds. I want to make sure there is transparency there's accountability. And every Gambian, whatever you know, want to know how your money is spent, is there. And we started with a media campaign. We did not have a media officer. Now there's a media officer appointed by the Minister of Finance. What we did, we borrowed the media person at the OIC Secretariat, Mr. Fadera, to come and sit with us. He was sharing my office with me. He sits on my couch every day as I'm working. He observes and he would write. He created, I think, a Twitter feed. We have a Facebook account and everything. On this,
I don't like excuse me, I don't like interrupting people when they are on their feet. I know what it's like because you sometimes tend to lose your trend of thinking. But I think the question was very specific. But we have a lot of things to cover, and we don't, please, we have a lot of things to cover, and we don't seem to have time. You know that the first ordinary session starts on the 3rd, and that's on Monday. Is it Thursday? Thursday of next week. And we still have a lot to cover. So now the question was that you have been told, or we are being told, as per the report, that no needs assessment was done. Now you are refuting that. And it just say we need it, and then a follow-up question will probably
let me go straight to the point.
Can you provide it?
Yes.
And then yes
I can.
or no?
Needs assessment
and then we
was
move forward.
Needs assessment was
Can
done.
I add a more practical question too? I want to add a more practical question to that.
Yes.
To help you.
Yes.
You know you bought a lot of items.
Yes.
That you distributed.
Yes.
Was that based on needs assessment?
Yes.
And
Yes,
if
sir.
yes, why was it in a language?
Please, can we allow
We
me?
have-
Please.
Order.
My friend. Otherwise, we wouldn't make any progress.
It was
We can't
based.
all talk at the same time. We have to listen to each other. Yes, Honorable?
A need assessment was done.
No, he's not completed.
Well, yeah. It's okay, you can answer.
Okay. A needs assessment was done, and the records are there. The director of planning, Alaji Fadera, I set up that committee, and he's the chair of the committee, and they came up with items, food items, that are supposed to be procured, and for how many people. At first, they said for the entire country. If I don't have to go into those details, I can wait when we get there. But the answer is yes, a need assessment was done, and we have documents, and we can submit.
Right. We are reconvening. We will continue tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Before then, can you make it available?
I will, I said here, when I was in a meeting.
Yes, NDMA.
NDMA conducted the need assessment. If you want to write, actually know the right answer, ask the right people. So
you are not going to tell us how to conduct our proceedings, right?
Yes, but we conducted
No. You will have to withdraw that.
I withdraw that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We will accommodate everybody because it's a sort of fact-finding. We will accommodate everybody, and we are not out to hold anybody responsible. We are trying to find out what actually transpired. So it's a consultation. You see that everybody is free, but we have to be orderly. That's all. Otherwise, we'll just be like going to the market and.
Well, can I make an observation?
Yes, he wants to make a proposal on
No
the
observation. Because it's very interesting that you are negating some of the things that you said were there. If, for example, you had, because it seems he is saying that this assessment was done. Who was responsible for this? Which committee? Which committee's role was to do the need assessment? To me, I don't know. Because we never said that it was they who were responsible. They were responsible for food distribution. So now he's saying that they did the need assessment. That's why we are saying the committees and their functions are fundamental for us.
Yes.
Now everybody is raising hands there, like everybody did in this assessment.
Whoever from NDMA.
No, let me go. Let me.
Governor, thank you so much. There was indeed assessment that was conducted well before we do the procurement. There's a technical committee on the ground doing the planning process. And like the governor is mentioning, we start this process immediately after the government declared the forced COVID case. What we did is we cannot go in for physical need assessment at that point in time when we need to do emergency response. There are a series of literatures that are already on ground and they are very recent, the time COVID was coming, that can help us as far as humanitarian standard is concerned and development procedures are concerned. We use those reference materials to do our conclusion with the Directorate of Development Planning, NANA, because we cannot even just come as a humanitarian worker to say what should an individual should receive. You have to follow the institutional value in which NANA was in the point. We use other reference materials like the IT data to determine the number of people in the country, the poverty situation in this country, and also the country harmony that determine the food security situation of the country of the 2019 agricultural season. We know which regions are vulnerable in terms of food security. So these are the literatures that we review to come to our conclusion as far as the need assessment is concerned. Because there are no other ways that we can go in to do those physical need assessment. And when you do it, it has involved a lot of cost, time, and also it has to delay the entire process. This is the system we use to get to the conclusion, to advise from the parliament to the subcommittee, what are we going to procure as a technical team.
Very well. Now, from what you have just said, you have to give us, as of the dates, sometime in April 2020, was based on a 2019 PBOS.
You know, all those references. We work in the Ministry of Finance, chairperson during that time.
You know, you have to tell us where you base your findings on.
Yeah.
And then the actual dates that the needs assessment was presented based on findings of previous years on vulnerable households. Was it the bad season? Portrait season or rainy season or whatever you call it, I'm not sure. But you must, according to you, you must have based it on something. So now provide the committee with that, and then that would also
we'll work
help.
with the Ministry of Finance to provide this.
Pardon?
We'll work with the Ministry of Finance to provide, though at that level when the auditors were at our office, these reports, because this planning session takes us 2 months.
Well, you have the document with you, according
yes,
to
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
No minutes, but we'll provide the reference material.
provide the document.
Yeah.
Honorable Minority, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In fact, is what I wanted to ask. Because if you look at the audit report, the auditor is telling you, despite several requests, you have the need assessment, the auditors are asking you about the need assessment, but you cannot provide it to them. So I don't know, I think the auditors also, because they are telling us they are not talking to the right people. And then I think the auditors will need to inform, the auditors also need to inform who are they talking to them.
There are financial procedures that you will follow. They are not witnesses. Am I right? Yes, they are not witnesses. But we can request for any document that we need from the witnesses. And that is what we are doing. Mr. NDA with your team and Governor Central Bank with NPS. If you have a document, your needs assessment, signed, dated, or whatever.